Howdy everyone, Joe here from ActionX and welcome to What's on the Tube, where we review TV shows normally on an episode by episode basis, but today we are reviewing a season of television, spoiler free for your amusement. So if you have not yet seen Walker Season 2 and you're curious, how is the second season of Walker like? This is the video for you. So if you don't know who I am Joe Soprano. I have reviewed every episode in Walker Season 2. I've done a Season 3 predictions video for it already. So here I am. I'm going back and talk about the whole season as a whole with no spoilers. So nothing that was majorly spoiled on the internet. Anything else beyond episode 1 will not be talked about at all. And yeah, so with that being said, let's get down to it. So Walker Season 2 premiered all throughout the last year at the time of this recording. So throughout the October of 2021 into June of 2022, they aired the second season of Walker. And for when I was getting into it, also I apologize if I feel a little out of breath. I have hiccups right now, and I don't feel so good. I think I ate too much salmon, which sounds crazy for someone of my caliber. I feel off, so I apologize if I feel a little bit off put during some points of this episode. So I apologize. But anywho, when Walker Season 2 was announced, and I was obviously speculating what it could be, the whole premise of Season 1 had a vision, it had a motive, and, you know, it kind of felt like this could have been a limited series done and dry. Because I always fear when it comes to, like, when it comes to these types of shows where you can say this about any long-running shows, like, eventually the original premise, it comes to an end. The question is, for longevity purposes, that can it create a whole new plot line to allow a second or third or fourth season to continue onwards without you know, stretching out the original mystery or the original premise or stuff like that. For Walker Season 2, I will say this. I'm point blank. I think Season 2 is better than Season 1. Season 1, it was, you know, brand new show. It was, for many people, the first thing they're seeing the main lead, Jared Padalecki, not as Sam Winchester for once. It was kind of like us transitioning through and kind of finding this funny because, you know, Walker is not an original IP. Well, this is a reboot of the original show from, I believe, the 80s or the 90s. And this was kind of being the modern day storytelling device where putting the character in a season long storyline. And, you know, the first season, I thought it was very strong in moments. I was debating on how, you know, quick and sporadic things were, but it worked. You got that idea, you got that vision for the first season. Now the question is, how do you carry that over for Season 2? Can you really keep that energy going without, you know, kind of rebooting everything or kind of, you know, hurting the show just for the sake of having another season of television? For me, it continues naturally. It definitely does continue certain tropes I was expecting from this world. That, you know, you're in the South, so what do you get? You get a family rivalry, and guess what? You get a family rivalry this season. And I'll say this much: Season 2 has a lot of benefits over Season 1, but there's some things I prefer from Season 1 over Season 2. I was like really starting to feel a little bit towards like the latter half of just like, I feel like this season kind of ran a little too long at the end, in my opinion. I know 18 episodes last season worked out well. I feel like you could have trimmed off a little bit of the fat in this season. I don't think you need to do 18. Not to say the story's bloated or anything, but it felt like even for Walker standards, it kind of stretched out a little bit too much at certain points, and they overdid a couple of elements that I think you should have saved over for the third season, which they already did confirm. However, I don't think that hurts the main premise of the season. I don't think it does. I just felt like there was a lot of moving pieces that they were trying to accomplish for future seasons that I don't think was necessary to this story. There were some moments where they actually really made like a certain thing happen in real life, or certain things that happened within the show. It worked to its benefit, then there's something that just didn't work with itself. And honestly, yeah, Season 2, I think, on top of it, like, is better than Season 1. I think you have a much more tighter dynamic. You have a much more tighter family focus, and you definitely get to see more of the characters' weaknesses and their attempts to do better for themselves and for the people around them. So I give it that, but there are certain story lengths that I was not really a big fan of. So going into it specifically with the story, the main premise of the story is the Walkers uncover a whole new, we get to uncover a whole new chapter of the Walkers' family history with their family rivalry I can't pronounce. I apologize. With this other family called the Daversons. That's kind of the primary focus of it. I'm not going to spoil too much of it, but of course, there's a conflict between every generation of the family, whether it comes to the oldest, the modern, or the younger generation. There's been a conflict, and honestly, certain things during this conflict were surprising. I was not expecting it. Some things felt expected and predictable because this has been done so much. The whole family versus family type thing in many different media, many different genres, that it becomes expected that okay, this is gonna happen with this at this point, and it did. It's not to say this is predictable. It's just like it's not breaking the mold a little bit. It really isn't. They're definitely trying to do certain things, and kind of got like if I have to like be a little tease a little bit like a Romeo and Juliet vibe to it. So I'll say that much about it. But it starts like being the main conflict of the whole season. Like we got expenditure stuff. We have the gang stuff. They were wrapping up for season 1. That's prevalent here. They're setting up newer threats to the Texas Rangers around the road. They made more callbacks to season 1 than I was expecting, which I understand kind of makes sense with given how the premise of the story is about the main theme about this season is moving on to the next chapter. Like last season was more like accepting the losses. This season was about how do you move on from the losses, and every character is like moving on. Like they're trying to figure out what is next for them. What is the next step for them. They've dealt with so much traumatic stuff last year. How do we move forward from the past as well as at the same time trying to deal with the past? We're going to make mistakes. We're going to make smart decisions. It just depends on what the situation is and how do we move forward from it. That it makes everyone a better person and makes everyone kind of, realize that this is the cards we are dealt with and this is how we proceed forward with it. Speaking of proceeding forward with it, the characters, mainly first off the top of the bill, I think everyone who's been keeping up with the news with Walker knows about this, so this isn't a spoiler. This is mainly just outside forces that kind of affect inside the show focus. So the character of Mickey, which I had a lot of expectations about in my season 2 predictions last year, for Mickey to have a really big role this season. Well, sad to say that the actress Lindsay Morgan sadly departed from the season, not even halfway through this show, for unspoken private reasons. You can probably guess what it could be. I think they just left things off amicably. That it's just. For me, I always viewed it as, well, she's changing, her life's changing. I know she's engaged, so I know she's kind of evolving to like the next stage of herself to be a wife and maybe even a future family person. You also have the fact that she's already done 7 seasons of television straight with another CW show, The 100, and then immediately once that show ended, she jumped straight into Walker. And to be honest with you, like, I understand, like, yeah, people need a break. Like, doing the same thing for many, many years can be tiresome. Like, I know, like, for me, like, yeah, at school, like, I have no choice but to attend it. But by the time I graduated college, it was, like, a big wave off my shoulders because, there was always, like, a routine. Like, okay, I would do 10 months of school as well as work in the college year specifically. And then afterwards, you get summer break, so you kind of get like the freedom of doing more things during the summertime period. And then you gotta go do your back to school shopping, and to go back to school the next day. It's a pattern. It's a repeat, and for some people, it gets boring after a while. It's just you're just doing the same old thing. In and out. It gets a little cumbersome, and it could be that might be the case for her. I can't really say much about it, because we don't know specifically, and that's perfectly fine for her to keep things private because we're not obligated to know anything about her public life or what she's doing in her personal life. We don't really have to know. And I respect that. So, in terms of her character, there's a lot of things that sadly were cut short. I think they did the best they could with the time frame they had available with her. And it was also ironic that they announced it the week after the premiere. Like, we had this big character moment, and then you get that news, and then it kind of helps the show because you speculate like what's going to happen. Because after episode 1 ends up, you're wondering, oh, is she going to do this? And then, well, it doesn't go in that direction. But then they leave the door open, and just like to leave and I think it worked out strongly for it. And definitely that was a smart thinking they did on that run last minute wise. But I miss the character Mickey a lot. I think she was one of like like the bright spots of the show. Definitely kind of helping Walker move on, kind of find his footing again in this like new chapter of his life. And I think that was always her shining characteristic. Her not being there anymore left an impact in everyone, and definitely kind of shaped things up for the second half of season 2. Maybe hopefully someday we'll get to see her, but again, at least for this season, they did well by her character. They definitely had to leave some things open ended because we just didn't have the time to do it, but they definitely focused on giving her a proper goodbye for now, and hopefully we will get to see her at some point in the future. But on to our main cast of characters, going from lower to above, and on how they are mostly in this season. I think the underutilized characters for this season, terms of like they got stuff to do, but they didn't really get to do that much. So you'll see like when you watch the show is that I think August and James are tied for it. James went in a different direction than I was expecting, which was kind of like something I won't tease much about it, but definitely is something that most people that are in his situation kind of wish would happen. Just that lucky second win, but normally he's just a supporting role. I commend him more of like Commander Gray from The Rookie this season alone, where he's mostly helping behind the scenes stuff. He is giving advice, helpful advice. I will say I think the strongest benefit you took away from this season is his new relationship with a establishing character, which it may come off as a little bit of force because it just was pairing that was needed for the sake of what you do with a certain character after this event. But it worked out very well, and I can't wait to see what they have more for him planned for season 3. But for James this season, I think he is a little underutilized, but definitely he has his strong moments. But I do believe, to kind of bounce back off that, is the most underutilized character was August. I think last season was so August positive because, him dealing with the death of his mother and then him having to go to a new school, kind of having to evolve into this next person of himself. Definitely was something I was curious in seeing. This season, it was kind of more like he was kind of there. He was serviceable to the plot when needed. And I normally don't like that when normally like a character is only there just to service the plot or the development of another character. I don't really like that at all, to be honest with you. It definitely kind of shoehorns them in. It's like, yeah, you had your moment. Now you're just kind of helping out another character, but you're still getting paid for it. So I don't really like that at all. I really don't. But it is what it is with that one. And hopefully we'll see better things for him next time. But with him this season, we didn't get to see much of August, and we kind of got to see a little bit of a downgrade. Like, we saw some improvement, but we saw some downgrades in certain areas. At least that's how I took it as those events unfolded, in my opinion. Stella Walker. I think Stella is like low key like a really big like force to be reckoned with, because going into season 1, going into the show, I honestly thought she was going to be like the traditional, like, daughter that's going to do some annoying moments and then she was going to have to, own up to it by the end of the day and then repeat the same things. No, like season 2, like definitely it was more mature mistakes where she wasn't making a lot of crazy decisions like she did in season 1. She didn't. But there was some oblivious things she did, but mostly her role this season is to just kind of be the glue to keep her family together. That's mainly her primary priority here, and it comes at the cost of certain other things, as well as her involvement in the Davison conflict. And there was just a lot for her to do this season. That there's a line they echo in the last episode of season 2 that I feel like knocks it all home to where Stella is in her character. Leaves me wondering what more they could do with her next, because she graduated college, she could go somewhere else. We really don't know what the future might hold there, but in terms of her character in season 2, she definitely recovered from everything she did in season 1 and used that experience to kind of mature herself and make her realize what her place is in the world and in her family, which was definitely a positive outlook on the season. Grandpa Walker, I was a little surprised that certain things that they were kind of ipping up for him it didn't really come to pass in terms of like making it a big focus. I want to say probably it was just like another one of those, like we just solved it off screen during the summer and then we just kind of like simulated the character to kind of just keep going forward to whatever the next plot point is, which is fine. It's okay. It's just like, you do all this setup, you do all this like big, emotional moments, and you don't really deal with it this season too crazy much is kind of a little bit of a bummer. It really is. I really don't like that when shows introduce these plot lines and they don't really do anything with them. It sucks. I know things always change, like for whatever one reason or another, but you always try to remember, like, oh well, they did this, we did this with this character. Maybe we could just acknowledge a little bit more than what we got, in my opinion. Otherwise, Grandpa Walker's real only role is his maturity and kind of like, unraveling his secrets with the Davison conflict. You get to see more about him, and about the character he truly is, as well as how things could have been avoided in certain aspects of the conflict itself. And definitely, this was like his moment to like maybe rectify the ship a little bit, not just with himself, but with his sons, and how do we continue forward into maybe a peaceful future, even though he's still stubborn as hell. Abby always continues to surprise me on Grandma Walker. She always continues to surprise me. Like, damn, I was not expecting this from this character. It's kind of like modern grandpa and grandma. Like, they still got the fundamental ideals of how they're supposed to be in their old age, but they're always showing up. They're badasses, and you don't really know a book by its cover until you realize it. And she this season, like, she had so many freaking cool moments. I can't spoil anything at all, but especially when we get the ball rolling on the main story and the main conflict of the season, like, you really get to see, like, oh my god, like, Jesus, what a rebel, or like, what a badass. Like, I was actually surprised. She was like the biggest takeaway I saw this season. But other than that, like, she really carried a lot of the things going, not just being like a mature patriarch of the family, but also just like admitting that she made her own mistakes, she made her own issues as well, and she's trying to own up to them. It just becomes difficult after a while, given what has happened. Liam does a complete 180 in terms of just like where his character is from the start to the end. It's basically symbolism of how crazy life can be. Like, sometimes you could be in one place in life, and then tomorrow you could be in a different place. I definitely would say that Liam definitely had like some of the a little bit of some of the weirdest choices of his development and his character changes this season. Especially after last season, he got shot by a freaking bullet, a freaking gun. Like, maybe it kind of affected him a little bit, just on how he can be a little bit carefree in life. Like, he's a little bit more riskful, and because life, you only get once, and you have to kind of play with the cards you're dealt with, but you also want to make sure you're playing the longest hand possible. And that was one thing I saw from him this season, as he struggled to figure out his place in Texas. Trying to figure out, like, having kind of like that midlife crisis sort of thing, and also having this like so much of a big black blast from the past, but in like a negative aspect. But through and through, I think he's still the wisest of the Walker brothers. I think he's still like the go-to smartass that we love for the family, and hopefully whatever he does next does benefit him as a character. But for this season, it was kind of intriguing to see how much he fell in order for him to learn a lot for himself and his future for his family, which I think was great. As for our lead, Cordell Walker, played by Jared Padalecki, I felt like I think he did it like the best. Okay, how do I phrase this correctly? I feel like we're getting to that transition point where like, Walker was kind of like more carefree, more loose, more gun-ho. Last season, the season was more like him trying to like calm down a little bit, trying to be a little bit more like, yeah, this is himself. He does kind of stupid things at times, but it's not as frequent as before, because he is aware of like the bigger picture now, and that things aren't the same as they were before, so he doesn't take things all for granted, which I think is the positive suit for him this season. Also, him mainly realizing that he is now over Emily, but is he really there to take the next step of him moving on to like maybe to someone else, or maybe finally talking to Jerry, because that plotline still carried over our heads for many, many episodes, even within season 2. So get ready for that. But otherwise, for Cordell, I think mostly for him this season, the main takeaway I took out of him is that, he was trying to find this new balance of himself, and, he never really had like an issue moment where things got the better of him. He never did. He always felt straight-minded and always tried to do his best to help himself smartly and help others the way he can. So that was basically the biggest takeaway I found of him this season. Favorite episode wise, coming up, I think I want to say my favorite episode was probably the Christmas episode, because we finally got a Christmas episode, because Walker finally aired on December. That was cool to see. Mostly, I think my more favorite parts of the season was definitely the family rivalry because you never really know what to expect. It wasn't your traditional conflict, but it wasn't like entirely like a predictable conflict. There were predictable moments, yes, but there was more moments where you saw the character fight back, you saw the character do something unexpected that normally you wouldn't get to see them do. And I like it when these types of shows like take new creative risks to kind of shake up the formula a little bit, shake it up a little bit. I was a little disappointed that some of my predictions for season 2 did not go through, but then again, I'm not a writer on the show, so I really can't be totally mad on it. But there was definitely some missed opportunities as you go along. You notice like, oh, they could have done this or they could have done that. It sucks. There's a reason behind it. I understand the reason. Maybe we'll get to fix that reason some point in season 3, if we still get to it. Otherwise, anything else, for me, I think that mostly covers all my bases with it. But for mostly in my case, like Walker season 2 is definitely the next step after season 1. It definitely is a better season, but it's mostly better in certain areas than all areas. But it still powers through in the end to be the best. The family conflict and the family drama definitely is at their strongest this season. Most of the characters do their absolute best when it comes to their performance, and I, for one, was very, very happy with just the end result, and I was very satisfied with the second season. And hopefully someday I get to rewatch it someday. But yeah, so for me, I would highly recommend Walker Season 2. So if you have not yet, you can go catch out Walker Season 2 only right now on the CW app. But later this month, it will be up and available on HBO Max for your viewing pleasure. So go check it out there. Let me know in the comments below, are you going to watch Walker Season 2? And if you have, what did you think of it? Of course, in a non-spoiler way. So let's talk about that down below. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for me today, everyone. Again, I highly recommend it. Go check it out on the CW app or future-wise on HBO Max. So let me know down below if you're going to watch it. And then if you're going to watch it and watch our episode reviews as a guide to kind of like figure out how other people's thoughts are as you go along the journey. And so this is a whole web of Walker videos for you to enjoy. So if you're going to go after this, so I appreciate the like and appreciate the support. So thank you so much again. But as always, again, this has been What's the Two from ActionX, reviewing the entirety of the second season of Walker with no spoilers. If you want to know what we're doing normally What's the Two besides our Walker episode reviews, we're currently now doing Tom Swift episode reviews each and every week on the CW, so go check them out there. If you're only a Walker fan, you're in luck. We'll be back this October, with season 3 of Walker, as well as season 1 of Walker Independence, the upcoming spinoff. So we'll be back in full force with the Walkerverse this October. So I can't wait to see you then. But again, you have an entire season 2 lineup of videos to go enjoy for your viewing pleasure. But thank you so much for your support this last year. It's been a lot of fun, and can't wait to take a little bit of a break with the Walker family, kind of do some other things. But again, this has been Joe from ActionX. Please subscribe to us on youtube.com/ActionX videos. Ring that bell for notification when our next review is live. Please also like or share if you want to. Please also follow us on social media to stay updated with any sort of updates we may have for the channels. But until we see each other again in October or very soon, I'll see you all then. But until then, stay safe out there, be good to each other, and as always, peace out for now.